And the invocation, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dave?
Heavenly Father, as we come today, we just ask for your blessing on this county. And we're going to claim a scripture, Father, that in the Bible, Jeremiah 29, chapter 29, verse 11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So, Father, as we come today, we just give you thanks for that hope, for that future. We'd ask, Father, that you'd consider rain. It's vitally important to our economy. And, Father, we would ask that you would bless us as we make decisions today regarding the work of the county. Keep us in your mind, Father, and give us guidance, and we give you that thanks today in Jesus' name. Amen.
Good morning, all. No comments from the chair since the chair is not here. This is the vice chair. I need a motion on the consent agenda. There's a couple of grants involved in that. If you guys,
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Public comments. Any public wants to make a comment on anything that's not on the agenda it's a burning issue for them? Steve's turning around, looking around like they're gaining on him. Seeing none, Miss Glass, I think you're next. Yes.
Hi, I'm Bev Glass. I am the Marketing Director and Grants Director for the Finney County Humane Society. And been there since January, so getting into the rhythm here. And I asked that since we get money from the county, do we report? And they said, well, no. I said, well, we're going to now. So we can keep abreast of what's going on there, because there's a lot of great things going on. In your packet, I had provided some startling statistics, but the one I want to talk about a little bit is last year in 2021, we had 3,024 pets, animals come across our threshold. And not only do they come across that, is that they needed some kind of treatment. Usually when we get in strays, they get a rabies shot, they get microchipped, they get a bath, and they get dewormed and a flea treatment. So that was an increase of 89 animals over 2020. So we had good outcomes. We have that we had 1,820 that got adopted or were returned on rescues. We sent to rescues, and usually we go to Denver or in New Mexico. They like what we do. They know that when they get an animal from Finney County is that it is ready, it's clean, it's ready to be adopted. So one of the things that we are proud of is that at the end of 2021, we had a decrease of we decreased the number of animals that had to be euthanized by 12. And then at the end of December 2020, there were 67 animals in the shelter, and at the end of 2021, we had 266 animals in the shelter. Our average daily census runs between 135 and 150 animals every day, all day. So that's last Tuesday we got in 24 animals, and that's a lot of intake. So, and all this work is done with 7 staff members. So, with the increase of a number of animals we're dealing with, and as always when you're dealing with anything with the government or anything, there's always increased paperwork. On our schedule is to have hire an executive director who will ride hard on the budget. The good thing about this is that since January, we have been the recipient of $58,000 in grant money. So that's helpful for us. Also is that we have upcoming events, so you don't think we're just like petting cats and doing fun stuff. We have on Friday, June 24th at the Garden Rapids, we'll have the first ever Barkeritaville. And that's going to be a fundraiser for,
That's a play on words.
yes, it is. So we're going to have cheeseburgers in paradise and lost shakers of salt and all sorts of stuff. That'll be a big fundraiser for us. And then in the first weekend in November, we're having Santa Paws. And this is an opportunity to bring your pet to have their picture taken with Santa Claus. And just in time for Christmas cards. And then on February 18th, the Saturday before Ash Wednesday, we're having party gras. So that'll be that'll be the two big fundraisers, Barkeritaville and Santa Paws, and then party gras. So in the meantime, we are in 3 grants. We have made the finalists for those grants. And so what we try to do is to write at least 2 grants every month. And then see, some of them are for $500, some are for $3,000, some are for more, some are for microchips, some are for vaccines. The grant we received from Western Kansas Community Foundation was for vet bills. We have hired a vet tech who is able to assess animals that come in and determine what kind of plan of care that they need. And then in the process is that we're working with the community college to develop a program called a vet assistant. Vet tech program is one that they do the first 2 years like a community college. It's out of Colby. And then they do 1 year of just veterinarian things. The vet assistant program is strictly vet. It is a 6 to 9 month program that basically you're able to come in and assess, and what that does is do a lot of things that we now have a vet come down, or sometimes we have to put an animal in a kennel and take it to a vet. So we wanted to develop this program in conjunction with the college that will help us cut down on the number of trips we make to the vet and cut down on our vet bill. Yes. And then one of the things that's on schedule too is that, and I don't know if this says more about me than I want it to, is that the development of a strategic plan and then goals and objectives, so we can have documentation of how we're improving our care, how we're improving our service to the county, and to, of course, to the animals. Part of that too is that we do transport, and when we get to the point, usually on twice a week, but mostly on Fridays, we transport animals who can be adopted to, like I said, Denver or New Mexico, because because the population, they stand a much better chance of being adopted. Good animals, they just stand a much better chance of being adopted than they do here in Finney County. We get animals from about everywhere. We have had horses, we've had ducks, peacocks, hamsters, gerbils, cats, dogs, chickens. If it comes to the door, we take it. So that's part of our agreement with the county and with the city. Like I said, we're working on our income. When the shelter has its budget and when it goes over, that's when the Finney County Humane Society picks up the tab to take care of those overages on the budget. So we want to keep reducing that number. We were blessed with a woman who was did a lot of work with Humane Society, and she left us a trust when she died. And so what we're using to pay those bills is, of course, the what's the word? The interest off of that. It's a tough word. The interest off of that trust to help pay for the rest of the animal shelter. Any questions?
When you transport pets to like New Mexico or Denver or thereabouts, do they fund you for that?
No. Their agreement is that they're taking the pets because and I had to learn this, the difference between an animal shelter is that there's a lot of euthanasia going on, and when you become a humane society is that you go above and beyond that and try to get to them somewhere where they can be adopted. And so that's one of the things that the Humane Society is committed to, is that they take care of the vans, the gas, of course, money for the drivers to take these pets so they can be adopted rather than euthanized.
Questions?
You mentioned you had like 205 guests in the shelter. What is your capacity?
About it.
Adding until we can't add anymore. We actually have extra cages we put out as well. And for all the animals that do go to Colorado, they all have to be vetted. They have to have their shots. Sometimes, and usually, they have to be spayed or neutered unless they're too young, and all the paperwork to go with it. So there's a lot of work that goes to transport.
One thing I failed to mention is that, and you probably are aware of this, is the outdoor expansion part of the shelter. And that has added like 48 kennels, 3 catios, which are, it's not like Barkerville, but they're catios. They're shelved areas for cats that they can go outside and get fresh air. There are play areas where the dogs can run and get some exercise. There's also part in the south part that is the isolation for dogs. We have isolation for cats in the garage at the shelter, but we didn't have any place to isolate dogs, and these are usually that they have bitten someone or have something that they need to be away from the rest of the dogs. What this has done is that it's able to move a section of dogs and cats out to the outdoors. They get some fresh air, they get to run, and that sort of thing. And then that allows the staff to go in and clean an entire section of kennels rather than trying to do one at a time. So that's been a use that not only benefits the animal, it helps the staff be able to go in and clean. As you can well imagine, it's always chronically clean. And then in that section, they're out there about 2 hours or so. It's all shaded, it'll be all shaded. So they'll be out of the sun. And then, but they get to be outdoors, made a huge difference in how they feel, and because animals, especially dogs, tend to get depressed if they're in kennels forever and ever and ever. So and probably about mid-May, we'll have a ribbon cutting for that so people can see that. Also, as part of it is that there'll be sponsorships for each one of those kennels and for the adoption areas. And that's a place where people who have other pets can come and see if there's a good match with the one that they want to adopt. And sometimes they bring their kids to see if that's going to be a good match. But we said you have to take your kids back. You can't trade them out for a dog for kids. You got to take them all back. So that kind of works for us. And but that'll be a really big deal for getting these dogs and cats outside and getting some fresh air and able to be more expedite our cleaning process.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I have an accolade for the Humane Society, Bev. On Saturday, a barber by the name of John Ryback was moving. He sold a house and bought a house, and the closing for both were on Saturday. And he had a dilemma. He had to get all of the furniture out of the house he sold and into the garage of the house that he bought, but he hadn't closed on it yet. If you begin to see his issue. And he, on Facebook, posted that he would not be cutting hair. The next post on Facebook was that in all of this moving activity, his dog got out and disappeared. And somebody commented that dog probably wanted to say goodbye to some neighbors, but anyway, some lady picked up the dog and took it to the animal shelter, and they microchip checked it, and in just a little bit they had the owner identified. So it turned out I could just see his frustration trying to get moved and looking for a dog and everything going on, that how well that worked with the microchip and the folks there identifying the dog's owner. So.
Thank you. You know, one of the things that right now, we usually do a spay and neuter clinic once a quarter. And what we want to do with our overall population, we have always an overabundance of pit bulls, chihuahuas, and female cats. So we have what they call a trap and release and program where there's people who have fed cats, but they aren't theirs. And so they're brought in and they're spayed or neutered and cleaned up, and then they have their ear clipped so people would know that this cat has been, taken care of. And then we have a barn cat. So people who are always, it's amazing, is that we have a lot of people who will call and say, do you have any mousers? And we said, oh boy, do we. And then, but they're cats that are taken care of, and then they're just released to go and be mousers out at people's farms or other places. But they're mostly outdoor cats and not, cuddly wuddly for inside, but act as mousers. So there's some other programs going on that we mostly try to get the animals taken care of so we can cut down on the overpopulation of our animals in Finney County.
Thanks, Bev.
You're welcome. Thank you for having us.
RHID.
Commissioners, you have a couple of resolutions before you today for your consideration. The first one is, in essence, establishing the resolution for an RHID. This is per KSA 12-5241. Once again, this establishes the district providing not only the legal description of the land that's included within that RHID, but also a map as well. The second resolution, 23-2022, in essence is the policy, and this is the one that establishes the 15-year payout on that RHID. So both of them before you for your consideration. Is there any questions, follow-up questions on that?
Do they need to come up as one, or can they be combined?
Go ahead and take two motions, two separate motions.
And Mr. Chairman, we're identifying by resolution and moving forward on two of the green areas, if you will. What are the thoughts, plans, whatever, for the others? Are they coming up in the future, or?
Well, I'm not certain I follow what your question is for sure.
I'm not clear in my question. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
I'm sorry. We're asked today to respond to two of the areas on the map, the green RHID areas, but there's some others that we're not addressing today. Are they coming?
No, all the RHID areas that are established within the first resolution is included within there. And there's several as you look at the legal descriptions as well as the entire map.
So, okay, so all of them will be RHID as soon as we act today.
Yes, they're eligible for that.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the resolution that outlines the potential RHID sites within the county.
Need a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chairman.
Been moved and seconded. Questions, discussion?
That is resolution 22-.
22-2022. Lots of twos.
Could we have a relative explanation of what happens next? Robert or Lana or somebody?
Well, in essence, this thing goes for approval, final approval then to the Chamber of Commerce.
Department of Commerce?
Department of Commerce. And then at that point in time, as those lands become or decide to develop, those then are eligible for that process, and your process is in Resolution 23.
Okay, and then as an example, if one of those parcels came forward, Department of Commerce says, yes, we accept this concept that Finney County has presented, then the county and a developer goes through a developer agreement, and
Correct.
you decide whether there's already a sewer district or whether it's not going to be, and that's all developed at that time?
Correct.
Okay.
Any more questions? All in favor of Resolution 22-2022? Say aye.
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 Okay, now we need a motion for adoption of 23-2022.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt Resolution 23-2022.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Exec session, how long do we need on this?
Believe that.
I'm looking at,
Kelly, what do you need, about 30? Up to 45.
okay. Who will be in attendance? You and Kelly and Linda?
That's correct.
And us, okay. Possibly.
Can't-
I don't, this is non-elected, so I don't think we can include you, to be real truthful. I don't know, is that correct, Linda?
That's correct.
Yeah. That's true. No, I don't have one yet. We're trying to determine how much time.
Up to 45 minutes is what,
Okay. Okay, need a motion and a second then.
I'll offer the motion for the executive session as stated for 45 minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. no action was taken. Susan, you're up.
Well, guys, a couple of weeks ago, we had a discussion about my personnel. And then I submitted to you and to the county administrator and human resources pay raises which were within my budgetary authority that I currently have and that I felt like our budget could sustain throughout the end of the year, with the knowledge that we would take a look at it again in October to try to stair-step this to get my personnel into the salary schedule that has been passed by the commission. Along with that, I'm requesting of you to also raise mine that commensurate amount, which is $10,000. Each time we make that request for my staff, I'm gonna make the same request for myself. And that's just to keep everything in line so that my staff doesn't end up making more than I do. So I would open that up for discussion. If you have any questions about anything, I'd be more than happy to answer that.
Now, this will still fall in underneath your total budget?
Yes.
Okay. Questions?
Does that require a motion on our part, or is that within her authority?
The Board of County Commissioners sets the wages for all elected positions.
I move that we approve the same salary increase for the county attorney as she has made for her other staff members.
You want to include as budgeted in the budget?
Within the budget.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion? Questions? Dwayne?
I've seen the salary ranges. I don't think they're gonna catch you anytime soon. So, no.
Okay. You seconded it?
I did.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Carries 3-1. Thank you,
That's all
Susan.
I had. I didn't know if any of you had anything you wanted to ask of me as follow-up.
When it comes to budget sessions, then we'll have lots of questions.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay, move on into your report, Robert. Or do you want to do Beth?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
So I'm going to give an update on, oh, there it is, the advisory board for the Juvenile Detention Center. It was held on April 6th of this month. We had 3 big topics to discuss at this meeting. The first one, since it's up, the funding formula, so I don't know if we've fully gone over the funding formula with you for the Juvenile Advisory Board. It changed last year from what it was prior. The biggest difference has been the prior funding formula only covered 80% of the budget. The other 20% historically was made up of non-member counties that paid the higher daily rate for those juveniles. Of course, with Senate Bill 367 back in 2016, that drastically changed the number of intakes that were coming into the detention center. So with this funding formula, covers 100% of the budget. We can't only be open 80% of the time. It has to be 100% of the time. So you'll see the first 15 counties. The 2 counties at the bottom, Morton and Kiowa, opted out several years ago. They take their chances on their daily rates. The other counties, if you'll see, goes back to 2016. So this is a weighted formula, 2017. So if you look in column I-4, up at the top, scroll up. The 1.3 million in I-4 is going to be the budget for 2023. We've gone over that budget with the fiscal committee and Robert. This was presented to the board on April 6th and approved as well. And then in that same I column is the breakout of each county's portion of the budget. Again, those are based on bed days used since 2017. And you'll see the lion's share of the funding, because of the usage, is the most usage is Finney, Ford, Seward County are the three top usage, and those are just size of the counties. Finney County had a couple of long-term juveniles in the facility. So does anyone have questions on the funding formula? And if I might add, this is the same funding formula that Junction City uses, detention center.
Now, what do you charge non-member counties for per day?
Non-member counties are a $250 daily rate.
Okay, versus,
It depends on the formula, so they're all just a little bit different for the member counties. And then for the two counties, Morton and Kiowa, because they are within our region, if they do have a juvenile that comes in, that is 3 times the bed rate, so that would be at $750 a day if they have a juvenile.
questions?
Is your budgeted amount on the annual basis up 2%, 5%, even to last year?
Last year was 1.1 million for the detention side. Altogether, this is just the juvenile detention side. This does not cover the shelter. Last year, the budget was roughly 1.9 million. Our biggest increase for this year is health insurance costs.
You might cover with it too, Beth, on how you've reduced your costs on your food service and.
In last year, just kind of taking a look at the budget, seeing where we were spending, seeing where we could make changes. We had 3 full-time staff in the kitchen. We have not been fully staffed just because of staffing issues. So we really only have 16 beds available. So what we did was go in, reduce the number of full-time staff from 3 to 2. That saved us roughly 60,000 with salary and benefits roughly. And then just taking a look at those food costs. Where can we save? Where can we make meals seasonally and save money? That's been a huge impact on the budget. So we're continually looking at that.
Dave?
Beth, is this budget, is this in total dedicated to the juvenile detention center? Nothing goes over to the other bed?
Correct. This 1.3 is just the detention center.
And we've got a bed and breakfast on one side and a juvenile detention on the other. How's your bed and breakfast, as I call it? How is that working out? Is that paying for itself, or is?
It is not. The daily rate for the shelter is $156 due to staffing. And then the guidelines we have to follow under child care, 1 staff to 7 juveniles during waking hours, 1 to 11. We have not been able to even open the second pod for the shelter kids, so we run anywhere from 4 to 6 youth in the shelter.
This was at the request of the state, a kind of a hopeless issue. I'm gonna be diplomatic and say it was a waste of money. That, it kind of sums it up, does it not?
That's pretty accurate.
Thank you.
It is not paying for itself.
Beth, you might cover what, they propose or what you're thinking about to get on the
Secure care?
secure care.
So we have been discussing changing the shelter to secure care. So the difference between that is secure care looks a lot like detention. They are not free to come and go. Those are historically child in need of care cases that are chronic runaways. So they are ordered into secure care for up to 6 months, whereas the shelter are foster care kids. They can kind of come and go as they please, but they're both wards of the state, both sides. The secure care, of course, funding is quite a bit more than what we're looking at for the shelter. So I believe the last rate I saw was 225. I think they had an increase, but I am not sure what that increase was for the secure care. So we are looking at retrofitting that back to a secure care.
Does that change the staffing requirements?
Nope, staffing requirements stay the same.
The demand for the secured care is a lot greater than the child in need of care, correct?
Correct. There is only one secure care in the state right now, and that is in Junction City. They had two. One was in Wichita. They closed probably the middle of last year. They closed in 2021. So there is only one facility in the state of Kansas. I do not have those numbers. I attempted to get those from the state. There's such a turnover with them coming in and out in the court system. The state was not able to give me an exact number.
Dave?
The child in need of care, as I recall, we were kind of sold on the idea that there were kids sleeping on office floors. There's just no place to put them. And where did all of those kids go to? Did they suddenly find housing elsewhere that they're not using your facility? Does anybody have any idea what's changed?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I think one of the barriers that we've had is where we're located. So many of these shelter kids are from eastern Kansas, Wichita, and over. So it's become a challenge in the state with their staffing issues and transportation and getting those youth out to us on a regular basis.
And the figures you're presenting to us today, this is just for our information. We don't need to take any action on it? Okay.
No, that'll be during the budget process.
If you go to this concept of secure versus child in need of care, can you still house child in need of care in that same facility, just in a different area? So it would be an either or.
It would be an either or. You could, but that would be running 3 different separate licenses.
Okay. So we could go back to what Dave talked about before. We could have the child in need of care sleeping in an office.
Yeah, we heard a whole lot of reasons to do what we were talked into doing at the time. There were like 900 kids needing placement, as I recall. I mean, it was a big number of it.
That could be, and that could be accurate. Just to kind of give you a quick breakdown of how that process works. So each of the placing facilities, so whether it's St. Francis, whether it's TFI, whether it's KVC, they send out placing emails to all licensed facilities that take in shelter. And then it's up to each of those facilities whether they want to take the youth or not. And you get a pretty comprehensive report of where they're coming from, what their behaviors are. So you really kind of look through those, make sure who you have in the facility is going to do well in this, in the environment you have and with the kids you have. So it's really kind of so you probably do have many youth sleeping on office floors if they cannot find anywhere in the state of Kansas to place them. So,
Can't have, because I think a lot of the youth that are sleeping on floors.
Susan, you need to come to the mic so the public can hear what you're saying.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of the problem is that you can only take youth that are a certain age and higher.
we are licensed for 14 to 16 years of age.
Okay, so a lot of the kids that are being placed or housed like on a St. Francis floor somewhere are those that are 14 and under. Because they can only take 14 and older. So we have a lot of like littler kids. And that, I mean, when you talk 900, I don't know how many are over 14 versus under 14.
Yeah, and
you
where
know,
they're at.
And I would say a lot of times when we're talking about our youth that are over 14, we're also looking at criminal cases that may be a part of that as well. So it's kind of it's a game we don't know really how to play all the time. And when the legislature changed the requirements for county attorneys on filing those cases, and it also changed the penalties, it really changed like a lot of the housing, because we could, what is it, 45 days is all we can.
30, without an extension.
Without an extension, but the maximum of like 45 to 60 days that we can even have a kiddo who has committed a serious crime in lockdown. And so it used to be, if they were sentenced to a year, we could do it. We can't do that anymore.
But child in need of care, they have to be at 14 or older
For her to house them.
for you to house
For
them.
our facility.
Evidently, there's not much demand for that one.
Not locally. Locally, we seem to run into those problems with the littler kids.
Yeah.
Because we don't have foster placements or even temporary foster placements when our law enforcement has pulled them out for police protective custody, or even if DCF has pulled them out for protective custody. Most of the time, they're littler kids, at least in our county. That doesn't mean that we don't have them, just the numbers really aren't there. And so that maybe we anticipated we'd have more numbers, we didn't. And I think probably Beth also thought that she'd have more coming in from other counties too.
Yeah.
But I just was trying to clarify because you had asked those questions.
It's good.
Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome. Anything else on the funding? So the other two topics we covered that have kind of been ongoing is the name change of the facility. The advisory board has discussed for several months changing the facility name to the Russ Jennings Detention Center. Last week, Dr. Clifford spoke with Mrs. Jennings, and she was in favor of the name change. So that is one of the things we are looking at. I know a couple of you had some ideas other than changing the name of the facility. They spoke a little bit about this morning, so.
Dave, you brought that up, aren't you?
I envision a sign that is low and horizontal that says something like the Honorable J. Russell Jennings Memorial Complex. That's simple, out in the lawn, and not rename the buildings, just name on that sign the complex, and they won't have to change addresses or phone numbers or anything else. And I don't know what action we need to take, get that sign ordered, but I'd offer the motion if it would be appropriate. So that was my idea.
Yeah, does anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second.
Okay, now we have a little discussion.
What's the matter?
I don't know if it needs honorable in front of that. I
Well-
think that's too formal.
Too formal? Okay.
I appreciate your thought, and it needs to be, something that we do need to recognize Russ, because that was a passion, lifetime passion of Russ's.
I like the idea of having it just as the J. Russell Complex
Yeah.
and not, you know, and then you can go ahead and run the JDC side or the adult side or the youth side and with all your licensing. And
So just for the clarification purposes, complex meaning the community service center as well as the detention center, so.
yeah,
If you look down there on your lawn, there's an available place kind of midway between the two structures for that, for that sign, and keep it low enough so that you can see your buildings, because they're very attractive buildings, but yet something that draws the public's attention, so. I don't know what that sign would cost, don't know who locally, who can build one, but I have a suggestion or two there, so.
I know Dr. Clifford had mentioned that he knew of at least one individual, if it were to be a sign that would be interested in donation-wise.
Yeah, several of us would be willing to do that, but
so how do you want to proceed with this?
I-
I guess we'll vote on it first.
let's vote on it, and then I'll have a suggestion.
Okay, all in favor of this idea?
Aye.
Aye.
Now,
Now, Mr. Chairman, if our county administrator doesn't have much to do, so that we don't have the board interfering, would you mind calling, I'm going to suggest Andy at Hutton Construction, in that they built the complex, and he has some sign materials, if you will, available to him, see what he might have to offer. He'll name somebody perhaps, but kind of a request for proposals over the telephone.
Sure.
Okay?
So thank you. I think that'll be a great memorial to the Jennings family.
Tell me that again, I didn't,
I think it'd be a great memorial to the Jennings family. Thank you.
I agree.
any more questions for Beth?
I've got one
Oh, you got one more thing?
One more thing for
Okay,
the
sorry.
third.
We'll catch you up.
That is the security system. We will be bringing a formal proposal at the May 2nd hearing. This has been a topic of, I think, going all the way back to 21 with the CARES Act money. The system is very old, so we've gone out to bids and we'll be presenting a proposal to you for a new security system. Access and camera, especially with the ending of the retirement of the sales tax.
Is this for both buildings, or?
This is just for the detention center.
Used to be copiers that we needed all the time, and now it's security systems.
We are hanging on a prayer. It goes out at least once a week, so. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
Howard, you're up.
All right, this week I've got meetings for budget with various departments, as well as reviewing of position descriptions with Kelly, working with Mike on the inmate care agreement. He does have a couple of proposals that he's comparing and contrasting. I believe Linda was sent a copy of the agreements as I look at her, but I can't remember for certain. So anyway, we'll go through that. Remember, we do have believe the Chamber's annual meeting is this Thursday evening, I believe. So, as well as various other duties. I think I still owe the auditors one document, so I need to get that created and sent off to them. Just by way of note, based upon Beth's conversation, the clerk and the treasurer did send off the final payment on the facility, so it's now yours. So that was approximately $2.75 million, if I remember correctly. So the remainder of that sales tax, as Beth was alluding to, goes into that, that fund there, and that's what she'll utilize to pay that security system, so. All right.
Okay, good. Questions? Linda?
Just as an update with regard to the Huber Sand American Warrior litigation, we were asked from the appellate court for a short brief with regard to jurisdiction. So that's due at the first week of May. So that's going to be on my priority list, getting that over to the appellate court. And then just doing additional work with regard to Western Corridor and Northwest Industrial District to make sure that continues moving. There's internal staff review, of course, at the planning office. I think there are at least 2 properties that are within the county that I'll be attending that as well.
Okay, questions? Okay.
Who?
You got the calendars in your packet, so I'll start with you, Dave.
Okay, I'll try to be brief. I had a phone call from Garrett Spear. That's, as a reminder, the person who owns the land that had 40 feet of right-of-way available for a 481-foot-long county road. But he had a couple questions, and I've shared this with Kurt, our road and bridge boss. Garrett was questioning when we might be milling and resurfacing old Highway 83, and if there would be millings that they were gonna haul off, he would like a chance to buy them or buy other millings, and I told him get a hold of Kurt. I don't know what we would have for sale, if anything, but to put on that road bed. He still's not been successful in gaining any more width for a county road. Then I was at another meeting where the library director was there, and she informed me that there's now been another resignation tendered for the library board, a school teacher whose new duties at the school makes it just virtually impossible for him to get to meetings. And one of the other board members had a suggested prospective member, and I said, okay, send that over, please, along with Jay Cook. Yeah, I can't think of it. Jay Cook again, so that we can consider the appointment, and this will be an unexpired term, not a full term. So that'll be coming about our next meeting. I attended the legislative coffee, and a couple of us, or 3 were there. Interesting conversation. I don't know that they've solved much, but then I have one more phone call I want to tell you about. That was last night. Lance Rupp, who resides in Sagebrush and is now again on the Sagebrush Homeowners Association, wanted to tell me about he and a group of like the college football team, a whole bunch, spent the day cleaning up trash in the riverbed. And about the time he got home, and soon thereafter, was called by a neighbor informing him somebody just pulled in with a truckload of trash. So Lance went charging down the hill, and this guy decided to vacate, but Lance got him caught. And this fella claimed he was out picking, he picked that trash up out there, and Lance said he knew that wasn't true because it had just been picked up bone clean. But here was the purpose of his call. He said some years ago, the KDHE had a program where if you would promise enforcement, they would come out and put up cameras, and then COVID hit. And he's wanting to see if our sheriff's office or somebody could check, and Mike left, right? See if the program still exists, and then if the cameras yielded a suspect, if the sheriff's office would take enforcement action, and if Susan's folks would prosecute. So I told him I would pass that word on to the fellow commissioners today, and first it starts off, our cameras available through the state. So I don't know who we need to have check on that, but you can check on it? You're not very busy, are you?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Robert. And I believe that's it, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Wayne?
Basically just legislative coffee. I did have a fair board meeting, but my Wednesdays have been preoccupied, so I have missed the last three. But I'm reading the emails, they're progressing quite well with the plans for the Finney County Fair.
Bob?
Our West Plains Extension Board meeting was canceled for this month, so we didn't have that. I'd like to express our gratitude to the Road and Bridge people. Don did a great job at Southwind getting us allowed to put a couple of dumpsters out there and then allowing the the landfill people to accept that under the county's exemption. And so we were able to get that worked out, and our patrons out there were able to use that. So thank you to Don and the people out there. Have our Compass Board meeting will be this Thursday night. Nothing really monumental there, other than trying to figure out how they finished with their discussions on their health insurance. So we'll be looking forward to seeing where that goes. Thank you.
About the only thing I had to report is, had the regional JDC meeting, and Beth pretty well filled you in on everything that we covered there. Also, went to legislative coffee, and also Commissioner Pishney and I attended the dissolution of the Northwest Industrial District with Linda and interested parties, and so they've got a few hurdles to cover before they get that thing dissolved. That's all I've been doing.
And a reminder that we have an upcoming
Oh, yeah.
ribbon cutting and whatnot.
Yeah, the Hunter's Glen ribbon cutting is Wednesday at 9 o'clock.
Immediately north of the Valley View Cemetery.
Right.
I doubt if I'll attend, but
Yeah, I'm gonna be there.
We'll be-
Bob and Dave are going to be there, we'll be well represented.
I'll be out of town.
Okay. Okay, moving on. We need another exec session for 15. Can we take a 5-minute break before we do this? Okay. We'll start at 10:15 with the exec session, and we'll be back in here at 10:30.
We need a motion.
I'll need a motion. Who wants?
I move we go to executive session at 10:15 for a 15-minute period. Is that second? Non-elected,
Yep.
non-elected personnel.
It'd be us and Robert and who else? And Kelly. Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, we're back in session and there was no action taken. Is there anything else that, that's a burning issue somebody wants to bring up? If not, we will see you May 2nd. And your regular chairman, I think, will be back in, believe here. Okay. Meeting adjourned.